interchangeably, but they are different things. Indigenous foods are more pre-contact, pre-colonial foods, okay? Before colonizers came to Alaska, came to Turtle Island, right? And then we had first contact, where colonizers, could be missionaries, could be miners. They started bringing their own foods and introducing their foods to indigenous ways of life. And then we had government issued. And I won't spend too much time on that one. We know what happened then, right? Reservations, people being considered as savages, and that their ways of life were not the right way. Food's being taken away from them. But now we're in a new era. We are reclaiming our foods. We are seeking food sovereignty. And so we are combining, we are marrying these indigenous foods, these beautiful foods, with some modern foods, okay? And hopefully more of the healthier modern foods, right? So one that speaks to, I know, Chef Flora's heart is bison. And if you attend our Alaska Traditional Kitchen demonstration, you'll get to try some bison meatballs. But you can see that they are very healthy, especially compared to beef, pork, and chicken. And then when we think about bearded seal, just 3 ounces, so about a deck of cards, has about 80% of the daily value of iron that you would need. That's about 25 ounces of beef pot roast, 38 ounces or 24 hot dogs, and 68 chicken nuggets, and then 57 ounces of canned lunch meat. Yikes. I don't know about you, but I can't eat that much, yeah. And then when we think about omega-3 fatty acids, our beautiful wild Alaska salmon is full of omega-3s, right? You can see that king salmon has about a little over 1,000 milligrams of omega-3s. Take note of that. But when we look at seal oil, just a tablespoon, bearded seal oil has about 4,000 milligrams of omega-3s. And spotted seal oil, almost 2,000, just in one little tablespoon. Pretty amazing, right? And then we want to honor other cultures, as indigenous cultures as well, right? The 3 sisters, the corn, beans, and squash, and what one couldn't provide, the others helped out with. It was a loving family. Wild rice. And there are many varieties of wild rice. Berries, right? And berries are full of antioxidants, fiber, and phytochemicals. And then taro, yep, a native Hawaiian staple. And there are many educational pieces out there. Many of you might be familiar with the My Plate, but that doesn't always work for every culture, right? So how do we make it more culturally appropriate? Well, Indian Health Services created My Native Plate with squash and some vegetables and rice and deer as well. But for Alaska, that doesn't, some of it applies, but indigenous peoples weren't raised on rice, right? And vegetables were very few and far between, okay? And notice how water has, there's no dairy, okay? So again, being culturally respectful of that. And there are some that have developed their own regionally, so this is from Search, okay? I would love to see more culturally appropriate My Plates throughout each region of the state or from each organization of the state. And then, of course, Hawaii, which Caillou will talk about. So, indigenous foods, they're not just nutrient dense, they're more than that. They're comforting, they're healing, they're part of the spirit. And when folks are in institutions, they are home. So I'll quickly talk about serving a menu of tradition, okay? Because there are many great programs throughout the state of Alaska serving a menu of tradition, but I'll talk about the ones that I've been involved with from at their onset anyway. So the Alaska Native Medical Center really works at looking at various ways to offer indigenous foods on their patient menu, looking at vendors and procurement, donations, harvesting, and even cultivating. So harvesting things like spruce tips, dandelions, salmon berries, fireweed, rose hips, and so forth. And then being a part of the Alaska Moose Salvage Program, developing a rapport with the Alaska Professional Hunters Association even, and working with different farms as well. Working with vendors and procurement. You know, a lot of commercial fisheries just cut off the heads and bellies, and that's fish waste. Really? That's not waste, right? That is some good stuff. Why can't we save that for our people? And continuing to think outside of the box and even looking at local items as well. And foods have been donated from all over the state of Alaska. And over the last 10 years, it's been approximately 20 tons that have been donated to the Alaska Native Medical Center. So many of us believe this. I think all of us probably believe this, that food is medicine. And you'll probably hear Chef Flora say that as well. So at Utukanainat, a place for elders out in Kotzebue, Manilik Association has a long-term care facility for elders, and they also have a hunter support program. Well, the elders wanted to eat their food. So how do we do that? Well, they built the Sigluk, a traditional foods processing facility. And Cyrus Harris, if you've ever met him, he is a gem of a man. Amazing human being. And he runs the facility as well as the hunter support program. And then the Alaska Traditional Kitchen is something that I manage at UAA, and it's where I get to work with Chef Flora Deacon, an Indigenous chef, and we produce videos. We just produced a video last week, fish ice cream, and we received donated she-fish, wild Alaska blueberries. We got some local beef fat to make into tallow, and then a little sugar, a little bit of olive oil, and it's so good. So you can check out our Facebook page and Instagram page for pictures. It's in development right now for the video, but check out our videos as well. I've put the QR code. And again, sorry, Tikon and whoever else is presenting, but come on over to our presentation after this keynote. So as I finish and transition to Kayu, I wanted to provide a quote from Grandma Rita. I had a vision the ancestors told us to heal the world. How appropriate is that right now? When we heal ourselves, we also heal our ancestors, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our children. When we heal ourselves, we also heal Mother Earth. So I will transition over to Kayu.
Aloha, everybody. just want to, well, hi, Robbie. Want to thank Robbie and Megan and Sundance and Leah and all the people from Hawaii Food Policy Council for inviting me here. I'm always happy to present with Melissa. It's about our third time. And being an island girl, I love to see different types of islands. And so it's fun to be at Kodiak. I was trying to learn a little bit about Kodiak before I got here, and I learned that it's the second largest island in the United States. Guess where the first largest island is? That's right, Hawaii. Our Hawaii island is actually the first largest. So wanted to start off and hele my eyes. So usually when you show up to someone's house, they go, oh, my AI. They always invite you to come in and eat. That's just one of our cultural traditions, is to invite people in to eat. So I wanted to talk a bit about food and culture in Hawaii. I'm Ka'iolani Odom, and besides my work life, I'm also a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother of one. I have one more on the way. I am a cultural practitioner. I studied hula for 42 years in a traditional hula school and went through the ceremony and rituals that allow me to teach. I am also part of a healing group where I do different modalities of cultural healing practices, and a food practitioner. And the importance of this is that while I was going to school and doing biochem and microbiology, I was also learning to make imu and to lay net and to make sure that I had a relationship with the earth, and that I understood all of our cultural practices and traditions as I was going to Western schooling for nutrition. And the importance of that is that all of my decisions are grounded every single day in honoring our culture, in honoring our aina, our land, and making sure that my elders that sit with me every single day are proud of the things I do. And in a food system that can often be extractive, it's really important that that's my guiding star. A little bit about Hawaii. How many of you have been to Oahu? Raise your hand. There's a lot of people that have been to Hawaii. Yeah. So before contact, it's thought that there are about 800,000 Native Hawaiians living without any contact with the outside world. And they were thriving with their fish ponds, with the way that they could farm, with their relationship with the earth. They were able to feed everybody without any outside help. Today, we use the same kind of statistic that Alaska uses. About 80 to 95% is imported. I was talking to someone who was saying that's not a good statistic. Like, it's 100% grain. It's only about 40 to 50% produce, but we kind of lump it together. So I'm really curious to find out, what our true statistics are. But today is the first time in the history of Hawaii that there are more Native Hawaiians living outside our state of Hawaii than there are in. The cost of living, the loss of land, all of these things have contributed to them moving out. And so as you lose the people of Hawaii, you also lose the culture of Hawaii. And it's actually a really scary time for us. When the first foreigners came, they always brought in someone that would draw pictures, and their pictures are always interesting because sometimes we look like them, and we know that we didn't look like them, but that's just kind of what they knew how to draw. So, but Reverend Ellis, and this is in 1823, wrote, "The natives are in general rather above the middle stature, well-formed, with fine muscular limbs, open countenances, and features frequently resembling those of European." See, again, I don't think we look like them. I think we look so good that we're like, oh, they look like us, but that's probably not true. Their gait is graceful and sometimes stately. The chiefs in particular are tall and stout. We know that King Kamehameha was over 7 feet. We know that by the cape that sits in the museum. He would have never let it drag on the ground. Another one wrote, "The natives of these islands are in general above the middle size and well-made. They work very gracefully, run nimbly, and are capable of bearing great fatigue." I show this to a lot of the youth that I work with because I need for them to know that this is their DNA. A lot of times in Hawaii, Native Hawaiians are highest incarcerated, highest rates of this, highest rates of that. And I really think we need to stop telling those stories. We need to tell the stories that make our youth proud, that make our elders proud, that we don't have to tell this. We have to be aware of them, but they shouldn't be our overriding stories. So I use these quotes a lot. Just different ways that we look at food. This is Winona LaDuke. Actually, the recovery of the people is tied to the recovery of food. Since food itself is medicine, not only for the body, but also for the soul and spiritual connections to history, ancestors, and the land. We eat together, we take care of each other, from Native Hawaiian thought. And food for us comes from our relatives, whether they have wings or fins or roots. That is how we consider food. Food has a culture, it has a history, it has a story, and it has relationships. So from an Indigenous perspective, when you look at my plate and it's got the 4 little squares, and then you look at, this is really what food looks like from an Indigenous perspective. It's not 4 little squares with just, protein here, carbohydrate here, vegetable here, that we need to consider all the things that food connects us to when we're working with our community. Just some pictures of traditionally, you can see that Native Hawaiians were very fit, they were very active, they had to work for their food, pounding poi. And these are the principal plant foods. I want to say one thing, when I was showing the quotes from people that came to Hawaii, one of the things in Handy, which is a super interesting book, if any of you really want to read about all of the ways that what they found when they visited Hawaii, but they state that our terraces of food were way beyond anything they had seen, and we were able to feed so many people, and our agricultural knowledge was way beyond what they had experienced back home. And we did it all with the one primitive tool. I'm like, primitive? We're outgrowing you with one stick, and we're primitive. And so you have to really think about who's writing all of this stuff. But anyway, these are the foods that we had. Kalo, it doesn't look like a long list, but we had varieties within all of this. So there's over 300 names of kalo. We had sweet potato, breadfruit, yam. These were our basic carbohydrates. Our greens, we're all eating Cavendish bananas every single day. We had over 30 varieties of banana. My grandmother remembers a hapai banana, so it grew inside the tree, and so the tree looked pregnant. Sorry, if I say a Hawaiian word and you don't know what I mean, just raise your hand, because I sometimes forget. A pregnant banana tree. So it grew inside, so it looked pregnant. And I finally found one on Big Island, but it's not something you see. Coconut, sugarcane, mountain apple. Our principal animal foods, fish, shellfish, crustacean, pig, which wasn't eaten on a daily basis, and it wasn't always eaten by women. Ilio, we actually raised a small variety of vegetarian dog that we ate, and all different types of birds and fowl. These were types of foods that were occasionally eaten, not all the time. And we have this saying in Hawaiian, Hele aina he kaua ke kanaka. The land is a chief, man is a servant. And so we understood our relationship to the land was such that we had to understand the winds and the rains and the cultures and the cycles just of the land itself. And for us, Kalo is our older brother. And so if Kalo is our older brother, therefore, both the Kalo and the land are older siblings to us. And that always teaches us the lesson that it's the responsibility of the older siblings to feed the younger, and they're in turn responsible for each other. And so this is something we learned very, very young, is that we have to take care of the land if the land is going to take care of us. Just a little background history of Hawaii, because a lot of people don't know this. When you think about the struggles for food, they're often tied to the struggles for other things. So Hawaii became a state because a group of 7 or 9 American businessmen imprisoned our queen in her own palace. And they kept her imprisoned for 8 months. She found out what was going on throughout the day because her lady in waiting, I don't remember the Hawaiian word for that, but she used to bring her flowers wrapped in the newspaper. And so she could read the newspaper every day. And after 8 months, she signed over Hawaii to the United States because she didn't want to see bloodshed of her people. She thought that the United States would make it right, which we all know the history of that. And but that is how Hawaii became a state. And they used to tell us in school, when I was in school, that we didn't protest, we wanted to do this. And it wasn't until about 20 years ago that two professors from UH were digging in some basement in Washington, DC, and they found a box with 38,000 petitions from full Native Hawaiians that didn't want to. So even today, our history is being rewritten because the early historical counts were not written by Native Hawaiians. This is our island, Kaho'olawe, one of our chain in the archipelago. Once we became a property of the United States, they took one of our islands to use for target practice. And so they bombed it and bombed it. We kept asking for it back, asking the military. And what happened was, finally, they decided they had to fight for it. And so gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, there were one or two women, would go on this island in the cover of night and then in the morning they would let the military know that someone was on island, and they couldn't bomb as long as there was a human being on island. And they used to have to run and hide, and this is a barren island. And it wasn't till, I forget what year it was, they finally returned the island, but they were supposed to also clean it up, but the ordinances are so deep in there that it's not inhabitable. It's used mostly for ceremony, protocol. People access it, mostly Native Hawaiian groups. A lot of our chants and protocol came from actually trying to get this island back. The Hawaiian language, it was actually banned for a while. After the overthrow of the kingdom, the teaching and learning through Hawaiian language was banned. My father and my uncle went to a school that was specifically for Native Hawaiians with Native Hawaiian money, but because missionaries were running it, they couldn't speak their own language. In fact, my uncle tells the story of being asked to say a prayer before a meal, and he did it in Hawaiian, and he was punished for doing that. And so for a long time, the elders would say, don't speak Hawaiian, you're going to get into trouble. And it was starting to be a lost language. And then, so in 1985, only 32 island children under the age of 18 could speak our language. And then in 1984, the first Ahapunanaleo, the first preschool was made. And it was actually started by two of my friends, and they had seen the model in Aotearoa in New Zealand. And they came home and they wanted to start a language school for children. And so they sat in Hilo Mall, and every Hawaiian family that they saw with children of that age, they invited them to come to this school. Now there are schools on every single island, and you can go up to high school on certain islands, and there's at least 5,000 to 7,000 speakers today. This is Mauna Kea. Did anybody hear of our trying to stop the telescope on Mauna Kea? So Mauna Kea is a sacred site for us. They have telescopes. We've been asking them to stop for a long time. And finally, with this last one, supposed to be the biggest and best in the world, it was enough is enough. And so went on the road. People lived up there for 2 years, and it's kind of rugged conditions. It's very cold. It's like camping in Alaska, but people lived up there for 2 years. And the strategy was to put all your elders front, all the women next, and then the rest behind. Because if they're going to start arresting, they're going to start arresting their elders. And it's really something to see all of your grandparents and your elders in handcuffs, being carted away by the police to stand up for a piece of land, a mountain that they believe so strongly in that they're going to go to jail. And they did go to jail. All the elders were the first, they went to jail. The women behind them, there are some tough women, man. We're not just talking protesting. We're talking putting on a pair of diapers and chain yourself to the cattle gate so nobody's going to get you off of that road. And that's what we did for 2 years. COVID's what actually stopped this protest. And we had everyone from all over the world coming. We had food tents. We had sanitoys up with bathroom crews every hour. They had Aina University. If you were coming up there and could teach something, you had a tent to go teach. I mean, it's a little community, but COVID stopped it, and there's still a battle, but as of now, there's no telescope up there. But it's the kind of things that we still have to fight for today as Native Hawaiians. And this is just every once in a while we take to the streets to make sure that they know we're still there, and when they know we're still fighting, and we're not going to give up. We will fight till we die for our rights and our people, and to make sure that our cultures will continue. One of the most disastrous things of all the factors was the slackening of the cooperative will and that sense of well-being within a secure social framework. And so with the influx of foreigners became this individualistic thought instead of a collective thought. What's best for me and not what's best for the whole. And it's a tension that continues today, because when you treat and care for the land differently, and you treat and care for your elders differently, and you treat and care for a community differently than others do, then there's going to be a constant tension. And we still face that today in Hawaii. This, like Melissa said, this is just food system from an indigenous mind, faces in the mountains that represent our elders and all the knowledge, no matter what ethnic group you come from, people in the fields, because you want to work hard for your food. We get, we've become a plastic wrap, boneless, skinless chicken thigh type of community. And we have to remember that we worked hard for our food, and the word for water is vai, and in Hawaiian, the word for wealth is vai vai. We knew how important the water was to a community, and being active and all of that. Anyway, this is the food pyramid that I use with my student. Traditional Hawaiian diet, something I worked on for about 10, 15 years, and we would go into communities and we'd take them for 3 weeks, and we'd feed them purely traditional foods on the first week. And then the second and third week, it was templating off of traditional foods. We'd bring in speakers, and it wasn't just about the foods, but it was about increasing their belief in themselves, their belief in their culture, the belief in what they could do. And so there's a lot of literature on that if anyone's interested in that. But we did this Indigenous or Pilinaha. And what had happened was I worked for Kokua Kalihi Valley for many years, and we would get all kind of grants. I had like 25 grants at one time. So that meant 25 reports, and that meant 25 different standards of what I was reporting on. So we decided to spend 2 years, and we collected the community together. And so we asked them this one question. So I'm going to ask each of you, just take 15 seconds and think, when is the time that you felt the most healthiest? For how many of you that's today? Okay, so yeah, so this is what we found too, is that we're going through life not even feeling the healthiest that we've been. Like, I get this from every community we have. The other thing, though, the most important thing was that everybody's story, and we collected stories for 2 years, had elements of connecting to a better self, connecting to others, connecting to a community, connecting to place, very important in Hawaii. And past and present, we kind of use for future. So, and spirituality sits in the middle. But all of our stories had at least one or two of these elements. And so in my work, using food to connect us to being healthier, we make sure that no matter what the grant says that we need to do, that these are all elements that we're using for connection. So I just wanted to show you some of the programs we did. This was our decolonizing diets in our cafe. We would choose some type of controversial topic, like maybe it was invasives, maybe it was GMOs or bees or something. We would make a full menu out of only that type of food, and then we'd have great fun and dinner, and then we'd have these serious talks and questions. But it was a way to bring the community together to talk about all the different types of issues that were going on in Hawaii, especially on Oahu. This was our, oops, sorry. Anyway, cafe and catering. I bring this, now it did it. Okay, this was our invasive species dinner. And so we had all the invasive species from different types of groups. And this was our 2 guest speakers. And we actually had the health department come, because they were like, I hear you're serving wild pig tonight. We're like, yeah, but we're not charging anything for it. So they had no jurisdiction over us. But because we were a cafe, we were walking a fine line. This is our cafe, the Roots Cafe. And so we would use all local foods that we bought, but in the end, that was Spam. And so as a young dietitian, I would tell everybody, don't eat Spam, it's bad for you. You know, it's got all these chemicals inside. And nobody listened to me. Nobody just listened. And so then it was like, oh, okay, well, let's do Spam and cabbage. So you got some fiber in your gut, and serve it with orange slices and carrot sticks. You got vitamin A and vitamin C and brown rice, and maybe half listen. So then we started making our own Spam. Fresh pork from the ladies out in Waianae. We were making our own cassava flour. You could also use potato starch, garlic, a little bit of organic sugar, and we did put in a 8-ounce package of nitrate-free ham. So about by weight, over 90% was local, and it was healthy. And so this was very, very popular in our cafe. But teaching people that they can eat their familiar foods, we just got to look at different ways of preparing it. Our value-added products, again, from all of our farmers, what can we make that is local? So green papaya salad, this is kalo. I don't know if you guys ever had pickled mango before, but we have to find a lihimoi that didn't have aspartame, food red dye, or saccharin inside of it. And that was hard for us to do at first. But again, trying to show that we could make the foods that we're used to healthier. We used to have these dinners for the community, and we just take a food, and this was our banana dinner, and again, serve it in all kinds. This was our banana farmer at that time, and he would like dress up with a banana and tell banana facts. And so we tried to make it fun for the community to learn about their food. This is our health project for kids that I started actually before in 2010. And one spring break, they learned about venison and cows and how to do the hide and get off the meat and do all of that. They learn how to lay net. They're learning how to be in the garden. They're learning how to cook, picking seaweed or picking limu. When we do imu, they were there to kill the pig and then take out all of the guts and intestines. And this is a picture of my friend Keloha teaching him how to take the intestines with a chopstick and turn them inside out, because that's a delicacy for us. There's not enough for the whole party. And so it's always the workers afterwards that get this delicacy, but it's an art that's being lost. And so how do we continue these traditions? And so getting them to start from the ground up, from learning about the culture of their grandparents and the culture that's being passed, all the way to the actual practices, how do we do it today, is what our whole program was based on. I also do cultural birthing classes. And so teaching our families that they are holding all of their future generations. And I always teach in this class that as a mom, you hold all your eggs, and as a dad, you hold all your sperm. And so everything that you eat is nourishing all your future generations, all the way down the line, more than you could even see. And everything that you say is heard by all of your future generations, your great, 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 great grandchildren. You're never going to meet them, but they're listening to you every single day. And everything that you do, they know. They know. And so if we are to look at health and well-being from a generational standpoint of everything that we do and say and put into our body is going to affect all of our offspring, all the way down the line, do we behave differently? If everything that we eat is going to affect the land so that 7, 8, 9 generations down don't have a healthy place to grow food, do we behave differently? So we have to be accountable to these things, not just to the dollar, but to these futures for our keiki. And I was just watching on Instagram, and I watch way too much Instagram because I see some really strange things. But a researcher saying they were really talking about substance abuse, but they were saying how it's DNA trauma and that kind of stuff gets passed down. And that, so if you're wondering why, a child who's one parent maybe had problems and, seems to go that way, because it's in the DNA, but they also said that we can break that cycle. And so that's the important part. We can break that cycle by doing different things. Ceremony and protocol. For us, our foods all represent different qualities of our culture that we most admire. So we use them in ceremony, we use them in protocol. And my friend Puni has this, it's kind of like a figure 8, and you have, the wholeness and disruption, and, you get to ceremony and you get to protocol. And we go through all of these because the ceremony and protocol and ceremony is really the highest level of practice. So birthing is a ceremony. If you think of it as a ceremony, what do you bring to your ceremony? You bring your highest self, you bring your best thing. And so as you're pregnant, you're getting ready for a ceremony. So you want to put your best into that because you're getting ready for the ceremony. On the other side of it, we have wholeness and we have disruption. And for many of us, we want to step in at disruption. We want to fix everything. This is wrong, so we're going to come in and we're going to do programs that help fix it. But if we don't remind people of what wholeness looks like, then they don't know what they're shooting for. And so we can't just step in at disruption. We have to come in and step in at wholeness. We have to remind everybody what wholeness is as we move past disruption into our protocols, into our ceremonies, for whatever you believe in. This is just one example of how we're making our practices thrive. When we started our birthing program, there was this type of medicine that was given to young women or mothers the 3rd and 6th day after birth. And we found it in a couple of books, and that was it. And so it was like, okay, I'm going to figure out what this is. So years went by, and I met someone from Ni'ihau whose family practiced this. And so she came and taught us, even though her family didn't want her to. They weren't ready to, they were the only ones that were doing it at the time. But she taught us because she knew what our work was and she believed in our work. And so if you give birth after coming to our class, and we only can do 3 to 5 classes a year, and you show up on the 3rd day, and it's usually the partner that shows up with the family, we will teach you how to make this. We will never write it down. We are not going to make a book or a pill out of it. You have to come to us and you have to learn how to do it the exact way that we learned how. And so the mom takes us on the 3rd and 6th day. It helps her milk come in. It helps with, kind of the 3rd day, all the excitement has gone on and you just are kind of going down. It gives you kind of a boost. And then the mom actually lies on her stomach and her partner feeds it to her. And I tell our men that, yeah, the tradition is you have to dress up in a malo. You guys know what that is? It's just a loincloth. But that's not actually true. I just make that up so that the women will actually feel better for other reasons too. But for many of them, they say it's the first time they've been able to have that quiet piece of time with their partner. And then he's feeding them a medicine that's made from our plants that is to soothe her stomach and to help her mind. And so we went from not knowing what this is to helping over 90 families at this point in time to make this medicine. And this is my granddaughter, but Ipono, which is us just about healthy eating, is generational. It's about the ability to change our future and to change the future of those that are unborn. So thank you very much.